Good morning, church. We welcome you. We say hello to everybody watching online. I think we would all agree, I think so, that multiple people can look at one thing and have different interpretations of that one thing. Yes? You know, you can look at the same picture and everybody sees something different. You can hear the same thing and everybody interprets what they've heard differently. I want to show you a couple of pictures today, and let's look at how you interpret them. So here's the first one. Okay, right? How do you see it? Is he going up? Is he just have exceptionally strong quads? What's going on? Anybody? Or everybody, do you just kind of want to, right? Right? It's an optical illusion. Next one. Yes? Yes. Does he just have supersonic legs? Joey says yes. Did he get a partner perhaps to be the legs so he could be the arms? Some of you don't want that to be true, and so you're shaking your head. Just because you don't want it to be true doesn't mean it's not true. All right, but it's an optical illusion, right? All right, different interpretations. Next one. How many zebra heads are there? Is there one? Is there two? Is there three? How many of you say there's two? How many of you say three? I don't have the answer for you to bring that loop to a close in your brain. I'm so sorry. I considered not doing this one, and then I just thought, oh, it'll be fun. All right, here's one more. What is this? Is it a creepy eyeball? Or is it soapy water going down a drain? Okay. It is soapy water going out down a drain. And I got to tell you, like, truly, it's embarrassing how long it took me to figure that out. Like, originally we were looking at photos and I said, I can't use that one. It's too creepy. And then someone said, it's not, actually. Actually, it's incredibly clean. So, here we go. Okay, but again, initially you can look at it and just at a quick cursory glance, it looks like an eye. All right, I have a last picture for you. Okay, now this might be a picture you might assume you're going to see at Easter. You've got, the crosses, the stone rolled away. We've thrown in a desert tree just for, good times. We've got the linens. You might think this is what we show at Easter. But can I tell you that while we can go, yeah, this is an Easter picture, over 2,000 years ago, a guy named Jesus was put in a tomb. It was sealed, and then 3 days later, he wasn't there anymore. And there were 3 different people that walked into that empty tomb, and every single one of them had a different perspective of that snapshot. They looked at it, and one said, it's this. A second one said, no, it's this. And then a third one realized the truth. Because we can look at it and all have different reactions to the very same picture. And I do need to tell you ahead of time this morning that what you decide and how you interpret what you believe about that picture is the most important decision you will make in your lifetime. We're going to go to a book in the Bible called John. John was one of the 12 disciples, and John is the 4th book of the New Testament. It's one of what we call the 4 Gospels. We're going to go to John. We're going to start in chapter 20. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene, who? Mary, so here's our first person, Mary Magdalene, went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, which, by the way, is John, writing about himself, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Mary Magdalene gets there, sees the stone rolled away, and it says she runs to who would have been the best friends of Jesus, to John and to Peter, and says, "They've taken him." What Mary sees when she sees the empty tomb is she sees a lie. She has heard Jesus' promises. Jesus has told her what would happen. She was saved by Jesus, followed Jesus. Yet when she saw the empty tomb, it was none of that that came back to her. No, she went, "Oh my goodness, the people that put him here, they have taken him." She went worst case scenario. I don't know, any of you want to confess you're just a worst case scenario person? And here we justify it, and this is how we do. We go, well, if you expect the worst, you're always prepared, right? We put it under this umbrella of preparedness, and well, if you expect the worst, I guess you're never disappointed, right? This is actually a worldview. When you look at the tomb, as Mary looked at it, we look at life as if it's worst case scenario, and we live to expect it. We don't expect that good will happen. We don't expect that joy will come. We don't believe that God's promises are true. And sometimes we think it must be easier. Then, when you could interact with Jesus and you could see him and you could hear him and he could hear you, it must have been easier, but obviously not. Even then, the kind of faith that it took and that Mary has a momentary lapse of. Empty tomb, worst case scenario. It's not actually true that you need to always prepare for the worst. It's not always true that life is a disappointment. So I just want to, you're here, so I'm just going to ask permission to speak into your life for a moment. What if the lie that life is always going to be a disappointment isn't really a lack of God fulfilling his promises? What if it's just a lack of our understanding? What if it's just it means we're just not seeing it correctly, and if we can adjust the dial, we might have a better understanding. But see, worst case scenario tells us my marriage is over. My story is over. My child will never change. My child will never come to faith. God has forgotten about me. I am unworthy. I'm unlovable. I'll never be chosen. I'll never dig myself out of this hole that I've dug myself into. But if we'll just hang on. Because Mary's response was not the only response. In fact, Mary's response was just the beginning of responses. So let's go to the next one. We're going to go to John chapter 20. Again, verse 3. By the way, this is where the Bible gets funny. People think the Bible is boring. Not so. So Peter and the other disciple, who is who? John, started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. Woo-hoo. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. So I want to go to another gospel, because Luke, who writes a gospel, was a physician, and he tended to include some details that the other gospels might not. So if you skip over to Luke 24:12, it says, Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away wondering to himself what had happened. So Mary saw a lie. Peter saw the linens. And it says he walked away doing what? Wondering to himself. What does this mean? What does this mean that the linens are laying there? Peter was chosen by Jesus, lived with him 24 hours a day, 3 years straight, had heard Jesus tell the story of what would happen over and over and over again. Peter was often the first to defend Jesus. In the garden, when they were going to take Jesus and arrest him, Peter pulls out his sword, ready to go to battle. And yet Peter goes into the tomb and goes, what are the linens doing there? We might be a little bit like Peter. We see something, we look at a picture that doesn't make sense, and we're gonna make sense of it. We're gonna take control. We're gonna solve this puzzle. We're gonna get this thing done. And I don't know this because it doesn't tell us, but I do know that Peter was one of the leaders of the disciples. And many would look to him. And so I wonder if, as Peter was walking away, wondering if he was thinking to himself, how am I going to explain this? What am I going to tell everybody? I've defended Jesus. I've been telling people to believe in him, and now I have to explain the linen. You should have gotten a piece when you walked in. So if you did, why don't you grab that? And just hold it in your hand for a moment. Some of us live our whole life looking at the linen. We analyze everything. Faith is difficult. We replay conversations over and over in our head. Should have said this, should not have said this. Anyone do that? And y'all, come on. I do. I mean, I've told you that I have a collection in my head of beautiful pieces of art that I've created, responses, arguments, things I'd like to say that I can't say to people because I love Jesus, and you can't say those things. But we have these things that we do in our mind, and why? Because we're always wondering and planning, trying to solve every situation, trying to defend every misunderstanding. And this is what we believe. If I can just figure this out, I will feel so much better. If I can just solve this, I will have more peace. Can I tell you, though, that life is not a puzzle to be solved? And I know it feels that way. Jesus doesn't play hide and seek and then find some kind of pleasure in watching us just search for answers, all the while thinking they'll never find him. That's not his nature. It's not who he is. What if the full life that Jesus offers means that you choose to believe in something you'll never fully understand? And to think that we will ever fully, this side of heaven, understand the mystery of God is foolish and would require no faith. And you can't have a relationship with Jesus without faith, because it presses us to dependence on him instead of dependence on ourselves for all the answers. Mary believed a lie. Peter only saw the linens. But there's a third perspective of this picture. John, the fast runner, Only one verse in John 20, verse 8. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and what? Believed. Again, it doesn't tell us these details, but I could sort of envision it, if you will. They come to the tomb. We do know that Mary ran to get them. And it just says that she saw the stone rolled away. And then she runs and she tells them. And when Peter and John come to the tomb, it does tell us John kind of looks inside but doesn't go inside. And Peter runs straight in. So John has waited until the others look in. And then it says, finally, he went inside. He saw and believed. See, John saw the Lord. And I wonder if when he got there, he didn't even need to go inside. He waited while the others had their reaction, and then he walked inside the tomb, and I just imagine him smiling. And isn't it interesting that they all saw the same thing? Tomb, stone rolled away, linens, no Jesus. Same picture. Very different interpretations. But it's like John went inside and went, this is exactly what Jesus said. He has done what he told us he would do. There wasn't a hesitation. There wasn't a, oh no. There wasn't a, how are we going to solve it? It was just instantly he believed. I want to have faith like that, y'all. When life doesn't go our way and when things look dead, when things look done and over, to have the faith that we serve a resurrecting God that can bring dead things to life, that can bring things that you thought were so far gone back to breathing. To be able to believe that by faith. Mary, the lie, Peter, the linen, and John, the Lord. John had what we might call a resurrection worldview. Whatever you think about that picture is what you think about life. If that picture is just a myth, or if it's even a true story in some history book, but it was just about a man, life is going to feel very disappointing to you. Because what hope do you have when things go wrong if you can't hope in someone who has more ability and power than you? And if you look at life like a constant puzzle to be solved where you've got to have all of the answers, what a disappointing life. Because then we're left to our own limits. We're left to our own intelligence and our own gifts and our own talents. And I don't know about you, but I got limits. I don't want to be left to what only I can do. I want to know that I'm connected to the Lord. I want to know that I'm with God and God is with me. So when there are things in my life that seem like they're dead and gone and forever buried, that I can know he can bring it back to life. And I got to tell you, I want to know that this life isn't all there is. I want to know that when my body passes away, that there's more to it. Otherwise, what is the point of anything? There's too much going on in the world. There's too much pain. There's too much suffering to think that this is all just one big joke. I got to know for my own peace, for my own hope, that there is more than just this life. But then what is the pathway to that life? Well, scripture tells us, Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. So how are they all seeing, how are these people who spent all of their time with Jesus not able to see everything that John saw? So it begs the question, maybe Jesus wasn't clear, honestly. Maybe he said things in a way that they couldn't really understand. So I want to read one of the times that Jesus was talking to them, because let's just look at what Jesus directly said to all three of those people. In Matthew chapter 20, Jesus is talking to the disciples. It says, now Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. On the way, he took the 12 aside and said to them, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death. They will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day, he will be raised to life. Well, there you have it. He says, they're going to take me, they're going to arrest me, they're going to flog me, they're going to torture me, they're going to crucify me, but hey, in 3 days, coming back. It's so clear and evident, but can you understand? Like, having heard those words, and you can hear them, but then to be faced with the circumstance, that's really where you have to choose to believe. And you know this. We can come into church and we can sing a song, or we can say something, we can say he is risen indeed. We can do all of these things. But it's when we go back out into the world and we face our set of circumstances, that's where the test of belief comes. Is it worst case scenario? Is it all for nothing? Is it all for you just to figure out on your own? Or can you believe that we serve a God that is very involved and cares deeply and compassionately and patiently and wants everybody to see him and know him? And Jesus said that to them in that passage, but he said this to them over and over. Why did he repeat himself to them? Is it because he thought they were less intelligent? No. Is it because he thought they couldn't get it? No. Why does Jesus say the same thing to the disciples over and over again that he says to us over and over again? Because he loves us and he knows. He knows we will struggle. He knows that when we go out into the world and we're faced with difficult circumstances, he knows that we'll question and we'll forget. And so he says it over and over and over again, that we might remember and that we might believe. He made them a promise, and his promises always come true. We knew that on Easter, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to preach a sermon, and we're going to read a passage in scripture, and it's probably going to be about the cross or the resurrection. And this is what we know, and because that's what a pastor does. So we thought, I wonder if it could be helpful if we just let someone else, just one of our own friends, one of our own brothers, tell their story of the lie, the linens, and seeing the Lord. And so we have a man in our church that maybe many of you know, maybe you don't know him, maybe you've never met him. But he was willing to be incredibly brave and tell you his story. Let's watch this video.
I was brought up in a Christian home. I had good Christian morals and values and a good moral compass to follow, which I chose not to. As I got older, got into following the wrong crowd, friends that led me astray to drugs and partying a lot. Knew that wasn't the way I was supposed to be living, according to the values I was brought up with. I don't know, through high school, I still went to youth group all the time, every Sunday, because Mom was the leader, so I kind of had to be there, but went to church camp every summer, sometimes 4 times one summer. I guess every summer I would rededicate myself to Christ, but then got back to school and everything changed again. Although the peer pressure and temptation was back, it wasn't the campgrounds anymore. I guess faith didn't have a lot of meaning to me. It was just something in the Bible that I knew was there, but I didn't know what it meant, honestly. When I was 21, I got married because I'd gotten a girl pregnant. I thought that was the way to fix that, but it wasn't. It was not a good relationship. It lasted 2, maybe 3 years, and we were divorced. I'd gotten clean while we got divorced, but then fell back into drugs, and it got a lot worse. Ended up spending 2.5 years in prison. Something I carried a lot of shame for a lot of years. Not the best time of my life at all. Did not like myself. I loathed who I'd become. One night in particular, I remember just looking in the mirror in the jail cell. It was a distorted figure of myself, a stainless steel piece of metal that they polish up and so you can kind of see yourself in. I looked myself in the eye and it said, I freaking hate you. I cried. And as I was crying, I said, but I love you. I got on my knees and asked God for help and read the Bible, read myself to sleep. As I was dreaming of Jesus, he came to me, he appeared in my dream. He didn't say a word. He just had this sheet that he was holding. It was filthy, stained with mud and dirt. And he just shook it one time. And it was clean, it was white. It was Jesus saying, Brandon, I love you and I forgive you. He was claiming me as his. And telling me that I am forgiven. My sins are washed away. He knew me when he was hanging on the cross. He knew my sins. He forgave me for it. And I love Jesus for that. Of course, life's not easy from that moment on, but I didn't hate myself anymore. It still took me some time to forgive myself. That was definitely a turning point in my life, but I still had to do time. I still had to pay for what I'd done. After so many years, my record's been expunged. I was embarrassed by what I'd done, and there was no way I was going back to the church I grew up in, but I ended up going back. Rebecca grew up in that church, and so we knew each other from that church, and we ended up meeting kind of through the church, but ran into each other outside of the church, and having the best wife ever. I have 4 kids, 3 with Rebecca, who are awesome, great kids that I'm so proud of. And then I have my oldest son, who I'm super proud of as well. Through Christ, only through Christ can we feel the love we do for each other, I think. And knowing that he died on the cross for us, for every one of us, every sin, is it's redemption. It means that I don't have to carry that title of thief, of junkie, of of addiction. I don't have to carry that title. It means that I am a child of God. I'm loved. No matter what. No matter what my past was, that's not who I am. I'm Brandon Long. I'm a child of God.
Yeah. Brandon, every Sunday night, works in our youth ministry, and he pours into students every Sunday night. Don't you want somebody who knows what it is to feel like you've looked death in the face and discovered what it means to now be saved and live a full life pouring into our next generation? Yes, we do. It was a really brave thing Brandon did, and it's not a story he has told before. So, Freedom House Church, you're getting to be, other than his family, the first people to hear it. And my prayer is that not only does that extend his spectrum of freedom, but it can bring freedom to someone else in this place. Because Brandon could have said that he would believe the lie, it's over. My life's done. This is forever who I will be. He could have said, you know what? My only hope is to figure it out by myself and pick my own self up and just do whatever I can do. But he had the moment on the floor of his cell where he went, Lord, I believe. I believe, choosing by faith to believe that there has to be more. There has to be more to this life. If you've seen any of our Easter invites, or you've seen the banner or the yard signs, you've seen this yellow flower in weeks leading up to today. That flower is an agave plant that grows to about 5 or 6 feet. And when it gets to the pinnacle of its growth and its height, it experiences what is called the death bloom. It dies. It spends all of its life with the exact purpose of death. But when that death bloom happens, what happens is that all of that yellow, all of those seeds are set free. And a brand new generation of countless plants are birthed. If we could just die to ourselves, if we could just choose by faith to have hope, to believe in the promises of God, to stop trying to do it all on our own, and if we could just choose Jesus, letting our old pass away and the new be birthed, the exponential impact that would have for generations, not just your life, but for the ones to come. The resurrection of Jesus was the death bloom of history. So today's an invitation to you, to all of us. Some of you have never established a relationship with the Lord. You've never actually said yes to him. And for many reasons. Sometimes you just try and live a really good moral life based on some moral compass that you've been taught or that you've surmised is good, only to find yourself failing over and over and to find yourself struggling. Some of you have relied on the faith of your family or your grandparents or friends. Some of you have found yourself so successful in this life, you really haven't figured out a need for any provision for yourself, yet internally, there's a hollowness. and you've wondered if there just can't be more to life. I want to read to you something that Peter wrote, and he wrote it later. It's a little tiny, tiny book in the New Testament called 1 Peter. It's very small, towards the end. But this is what Peter writes. What a God we have. And how fortunate we are to have him, this Father of our Master Jesus, because Jesus was raised from the dead. We have been given what? A brand new life. And have everything to live for, including a future in heaven, and the future starts now. God is keeping careful watch over us and the future. The day is coming when you'll have it all, life healed and whole. I love this passage because Peter is saying you have everything to live for here and there. Don't you want to know that there's more? That this isn't all there is. That you can have joy in this life and peace and joy in the next. So if you've never given your life to Jesus today, I'm going to give you a chance to do that, for you to begin that relationship. Some of you, though, remember a time that you gave your life to the Lord. But you have drifted. And you found yourself further away than you imagined you would be. And maybe other people know it, and maybe no one knows it. But you know it. And today is the day that you're going to come back to the Lord. You're going to recommit your life. So when you look at the tomb, what do you see? Would you bow your heads with me? I'm going to pray a prayer out loud. And if you'd like to give your life to Jesus for the first time, or you'd like to recommit your life to Jesus, you can just pray this with me. There's nothing magic about the words. You don't even have to use my words. You can use your own words. But if they're helpful to you as a guide, you just say, Jesus. Just say, I believe. I believe in you. You can ask him to forgive your sins. Say, forgive me for my sins. And if you need to, you could just list some of them. Forgive me, Jesus. Forgive me for how I've drifted. Forgive me for how I have chosen hopelessness and worst case, or forgive me for how I have taken control back of my life. Tell him that you commit the rest of your life to him. And you can admit and say, Jesus, I don't have all the answers. You just tell him, I don't have all the answers, Jesus. But I'm going to follow you for the rest of my days. Thank him for his grace. Thank him for his mercy. Thank him for his forgiveness. Thank him for coming out of that tomb 2,000 years ago. You can say, be glorified in my life, Jesus. Amen. All right, we're going to do something. If you just prayed with me and you gave your life to Jesus for the first time, or you're recommitting to him, this is what we're all going to do in the room. We're just going to collectively do it together. In the seat backs in front of you, if you're in the front row, there's some behind you. In that black strap, there's a card with the picture of the death bloom on it, that yellow flower. If you want to just grab that, along with the pin. And there's two options for you. One of them says, I gave my life to Jesus for the first time today, and you're going to check that. One of them says, I've recommitted my life to Jesus today, and you're going to check that, and you're going to put your name down. And in just a moment, we're going to be singing together and worshiping together, and when we do, you're going to bring that card to the front. If you made a first-time decision to follow Jesus today, you're going to come to one of two places, over here or over on the other side of the stage, where we have a gift we'd like to give to you. You're just going to give the volunteer the card that says, I committed my life to Jesus for the first time. And inside this box is a Bible. There's a letter from me. There's a pen, some next steps, so that when you go home today and you say, what did I just do? There's something for you to grab a hold of and look at. And then you're going to hear from us this week. Answer the phone. Answer the phone when you hear from us, because we want to walk alongside you. So when we sing, you bring your card and you can stop here. For those of you that are recommitting your life and you're like, you know what, I've drifted and I'm coming back today, you could just walk up and throw your card on the front of the stage. Last service, we had people not only bringing their cards, but also just bringing their linen and going, done. Done trying to do it on my own. Just going to throw them on the stage. We're going to sing a song that's become an anthem in this house. Made for more. I wasn't made to be tend in a grave, but I was called by name, born and raised to be life again. So would you stand with me? And if you're in the balcony and you're wondering, what do? You just do the same thing. You just leave, exit your seats, walk down the stairs, come on down. Same thing. All right, church, as we sing, you can come.